Hey guys, this is T.O. coming at you guys with a topic that has been blowing up recently. And that is the topic of the censorship of Ready or Not in preparation for the console release. This whole thing has been just exploding, and I want to give my take on the whole situation before it comes out next week. Just know that I tried to make another more complex video last week and my computer couldn't handle it. So with this video, I'm just going to leave some gameplay in the background, not mine, obviously, since the game hasn't come out yet on consoles, but I'll leave the links in the description nonetheless. Anyway, I'll, have the gameplay in the background, maybe have a photo or two here and there, and I'm just going to talk to you guys about my thoughts on this whole situation. In case you guys don't know, although from the amount of videos coming out about it, I'd say you probably do, Ready or Not is a hardcore SWAT shooter game that was previously exclusively on PC and is now coming to consoles. The thing is that consoles are far more strict with what they allow on their stores than PC is, and since Ready or Not is very visceral and does not sugarcoat its depictions of what SWAT guys have to deal with, the developers are going to have to slightly censor some content in order for it to be able to be sold on PS5 and Xbox. These sensors will be implemented across all versions. Suffice to say that this has made the Ready or Not community mad, really mad. Like, not even CNN could pass it off as a mostly peaceful protest mad. There have been tons of videos made on the subject, and the Steam version has been review bombed to infinity, changing its score from a previously very positive to mostly negative. The developers have responded to the backlash, and it didn't seem to help that much. What's clear from all this is that the community appreciated Ready or Not's unfiltered glimpse into the horrors that these officers have to go through, and this is being perceived as selling out for a more casual audience and going back on their promise to show things as they are. The thing is that people are saying that they're lying and trying to pander to a bigger, more sissy audience to make more money. But I honestly don't think that that's the case. I mean, obviously, they're releasing a console port in order to make money. I mean, there's no denying that. But I don't think that they're in some way lying about what needs to be censored in order to make this game more digestible to sensitive people. When you look at what they had to censor, it's a very short, specific list that they've been very transparent about, which makes me think that they're being sincere. And for those who say that they waited until after allowing pre orders in order to lay out these changes, I don't think that that necessarily had anything to do with it, since you can cancel your pre order anytime before release, and 14 days afterwards if you don't download it all. So I'd say this argument is invalid, honestly. Getting back to the censorship, though, one thing people have also been claiming is that there are other games that have much more nudity, much more gore, and other worse elements in them, The Last of Us 2 and Outlast being the biggest examples, and they're still able to be sold under the M rating. So Ready or Not should be able to as well. But the thing is that Sony and Microsoft are not impartial when it comes to how they determine what's okay and what's not okay. Not to mention the fact that, Rocksteady, EA, Activision, a lot of these companies have their own people on the board of directors for the ratings board, and they are able to give their own input as to what is okay and what is not okay. They won't allow these little animated esque comics that usually aren't even playable. Like, they're just visual novels, and they're still not able to be on their stores if they have even a little bit of nudity in them. But they're totally fine with Neil Druckmann sticking a grotesque sex scene in the middle of Last of Us 2, where both characters are fully naked, titties are flying everywhere, and she's getting rammed up her beehole. Like, really? There's also the Outlast games that have characters that have their little dudes, shall we say, swinging around in front of your face, or a guy that collects female torsos with the breasts still clearly present. They are also incredibly and grotesquely violent, just like The Last of Us 2, by the way. But we're not allowed to dismember bodies after they're already dead in Ready or Not because, I mean, aren't we allowed to do that in Dying Light and The Last of Us? With all that being said, I'm still convinced that PlayStation and Microsoft are the ones to blame for these hypocritical changes. And honestly, the changes are, again, very minimal, very specific, and so I think for the most part, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but only if it stops here. Although I won't lie, them specifying that the changes laid out on the Steam page are the ones that affect PC players specifically does worry me that they might do even more censoring on consoles, but let's hope that's not the case. For me personally, I don't really like to look at bare naked boobies of other women, seeing as how I'm married and my wife is usually in the room while I'm playing. And I wasn't planning on continuing to dismember bodies post mortem anyway, so maybe I'm just not in the right mindset to viciously fight against this no matter what. That being said, I do understand why people are mad about some of these things. And I think some of this censorship was done somewhat carelessly and does end up affecting the intended unfiltered, gritty realism that the game is going for. The specific examples I'm talking about are two of the things listed in the changes and more specifically how they're changed. The first is the change made to these human trafficking victims that previously were without any clothes at all have been clothed to cover up the nudity. Again, normally I would have no problem with them doing this, but it's the way they did it that I don't like. See, most people know that human traffickers are awful, soulless people. They treat people they kidnap and sell like cattle, like products to be sold. Therefore, it makes sense why they would have a container full of people and, they just wouldn't have give them any clothes to wear. They don't care about these people. Why would they even bother to do something like that? This also reinforces how horrible the people doing this are. And while it could still work even if they cover them up, they decide to use these super nice and clean looking pieces of underwear. It just doesn't fit. It shows these awful, heartless criminals to have some amount of decency, which goes completely against the purpose of having this part in the level in the first place. It's so over the top, obviously just a sensor, that they might as well have just put sensor bars over them as 3D objects with the word censor written over the front and left it at that. The second example is this girl who is in a house full of drug abusers, who's left unwatched and neglected in her room. And originally, you go into this room and see her violently convulsing and throwing up on the bed, implying that the worst possible thing that could happen as a consequence of drug abuse has. Showing not only the horrors that SWAT officers have to see, but also the very negative effects that drug use has on a family. They changed this now so that the girl is just sleeping. This isn't just toning down the animations or blurring the screen. This is completely changing the context of this scene, neutering its impact. This is the one that I'm most mad about, honestly, because nobody really wants to see that. But it's very impactful to see what happens in these types of situations, and this is basically taking the entire part out of the game. It also just doesn't make any sense in this context because the girl should have woken up from all the gunshots and the kicking the doors down and all the other violence and yelling that's going on downstairs. But you go into her room and she's just sleeping. Even when you enter her room, she doesn't wake up. And it just doesn't make that much sense. These changes needed to be handled more carefully in order to assure the reasonable players that they're not changing their vision or breaking their promises. And I feel like they could and should do better because they're making it look not so comforting to those players that they need to convince of their trustworthiness. In the end, I think this outrage and backlash is still a little overblown. I don't think at present time that they're selling out and review bombing what is still a very good game, I think is disingenuous. There are some changes that I totally understand people getting upset over, but acting like these guys have suddenly become Activision because of these few small changes is hyperbolic and absurd. On the other end of this, there are some people and even YouTubers I've seen say stuff like, it's just a video game. It's still going to play the same afterwards, and that's what matters. And that's also false. This game's appeal goes beyond its gameplay. It provides people with an unfiltered look into human trafficking, drug abuse, violence that comes from gangs, and so much more. It provides you with an immersive experience, not just because of the gameplay, but because of the world it portrays and how it portrays it. Heck, I think the gameplay has less to do with the immersion than the world itself. So saying that it doesn't matter is just downplaying genuine player concerns, and I don't condone that either. Again, too, I do think that they're telling the truth when I say that Microsoft slash Sony are making them do these things. Two things in closing. Players, don't act like this is the end of the world. Don't attack Void. Watch and wait, and if they do end up walking back their promises, hold them accountable. If we explode over all these changes, even if most of them are pretty minimal, it's going to draw attention away from the bigger issues. But stay vigilant nonetheless. Void, you need to change at least the two things mentioned in this video. I mean, maybe you guys have other things, but I feel like those two things are some of the bigger ones that make a negative impact. The girls shouldn't have super comfy and clean looking underwear. Give them ripped and tattered clothes. Make them cover themselves. Make the underwear you've given them that make more sense with the theme and the context at least. Or just put sensors over them like you did in these pictures. That would fix the problem just fine. No one would be confused about what's going on. I really don't understand why they can't, but I have a feeling that it's Microsoft and PlayStation's doing. This girl doesn't look unconscious. She just looks like she's sleeping. Make the position that she's laying in more spontaneous, like she just passed out in a moment's notice. Put something nearby that implies that she has overdosed. Have there be puke on the bed or on her face. She doesn't necessarily have to be violently convulsing, but don't censor it so hard that the message is completely lost. Your fans have trusted you for this long, and you're not that far off. Just don't leave things the way they are, and I think you guys will be able to bounce back pretty easily. That's all I wanted to say, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of this whole debacle. How do you guys feel about the changes? Are you going to be picking up this game on consoles or waiting it out? I personally am going to be getting it because this game is one of the reasons why I wanted to get a PC originally. So, and these changes are so minimal that like I don't feel the need to boycott it as much as I do, for example, the Nintendo Switch 2 and all the crap they're doing there. To me seems like I can be okay with it as long as they don't take it too far. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. This has been Tio. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you all later.